Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Sunday School Review. This week's Sunday School lesson is entitled The Birth of Moses. It is taken from Exodus, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 10. Now, the author of the book of Exodus is Moses. And Exodus actually means exit or departure or going out. And the book of Exodus records Israel's birth as a nation. Now, this particular lesson here about the birth of Moses is how God hid him from or protected him from the wicked plan of the Pharaoh of Egypt. The Pharaoh at that time had came up with a plan to kill all the male Hebrew babies. This was a wicked plan. Now, when we talk about this, the children of Israel at the time of Moses' birth was in Egypt. Now, in Genesis chapter 15, God told Abraham that his descendants would be in a strange country, and we know that to be Egypt, and they would be mistreated and enslaved. But God would deliver them at the right time. So God promised Abraham, this is really the continuation of God's promise that he made to Abraham, that he was going to bless him and he would be a great nation. Okay, so this wicked Pharaoh at the time had came up with a plan that is to destroy God's chosen people. As I said, they was down in Egypt, and the Pharaoh had devised a plan to kill all the male babies. So that was an effort by this wicked king or this wicked Pharaoh to destroy God's chosen people. And you know God was not going to stand for that, okay? And as they say, that's where he drew the line. Okay, so God had promised Abraham that he would deliver them. They would be mistreated, they would be enslaved, but God would deliver them at the right time. That's what he told Abraham in Genesis. That was the promise that God made to Abraham, okay? And this promised deliverance that God spoke about in Genesis, okay, would be executed through Moses. That is the child that is born in the lesson that we're talking about. That is Moses, okay? Now, at the time, Israel had been in Egypt for about 400 years since Joseph moved his family down there. Joseph and his family moved into Egypt. There were 70 members that they moved, that came down. Now, they was not in slavery the whole 400 years, okay? But they ended up in slavery. They ended up being mistreated, okay? And when they, at this period of time where the lesson starts at, from 70 members that went down of Joseph's family that went down in Egypt, now they are over 2 million strong, okay? From 70 to now over 2 million Israelites, okay, or Hebrews, okay. Now, so with the number of Hebrews, the Pharaoh at the time, it presented a threat to him. Basically, he said, if something was to jump off, there is more of them than us. Okay, the Egyptian leadership took that as a threat. We have to plan where if that happens, we won't be overthrown, okay? So the scripture tells us that there was a Pharaoh that arose that knew not Joseph, okay? So we know when Joseph went down there, he was, as they say, he was cool with the Pharaoh, but at the time, but this is a different Pharaoh. This is not the same Pharaoh that knew Joseph, okay? So, the Egyptian leadership, because of the numbers, they figured they will outnumber us, okay, if we don't come up with a plan, okay? So the plan was, the decree was, even though it was an unjust law, it was an unjust decree to, first they put heavy burdens on them, they still were having more children, okay? They were still being populated, okay? So what they decided, the Pharaoh issued an order to the midwives that they would, if it was a child born and it happened to be a boy, they were to kill them, but let the girls live. Okay, this was the time that Moses was born. We just setting the stage. During this, Moses was born during this particular time. Okay, now the boys were killed. They were thrown in the river, the Nile, and they were to die. Okay, but we're going to see God at work. God is orchestrating this scene in the lesson here. There are two outlines that we have here. The first outline is Exodus 2, 1 through 4, and its unique response. And the second outline is Exodus 2, 5 through 10, and that's unexpected rescue. Okay, let's start with our first set of scriptures here. It says hidden at home. Okay, number 1, verse 1. And there was a man of the house of Levi, and he took a wife, a daughter of Levi. Verse 2. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him, saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Let's go ahead and read 3 and 4. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrush and dabbed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river brook. Okay, verse 4. And his sister stood afar off to hear what would be done to him. In other words, this is Moses' sister Miriam, okay, his older sister. So, okay, so she stood by. She was kept him in her line of sight. That is her little brother, Moses. Okay, let's go back to verse 1. And it's talking about Levi. This was one of Joseph's sons. Okay, and the woman conceived, married a woman, and she conceived and bare a son. And when they saw that he was a goodly child, in other words, he was attractive, and they saw something special about him. In other words, there was a special purpose for his life. Okay, and this is what happened. Now, she hid him for 3 months. Okay, the woman hid for 3 months. Now that took a lot of risk. Now, even though it was an unjust law, the males were to be thrown in the Nile to drown or to be killed. So that was an unjust law. And some people refused to obey it because they trust God. And we see that Moses' parents took a great risk in what they did. And verse 3 tells us, and when she could no longer hide the child, she took and made an ark, and she pitched it, made it that it was waterproof, basically. And actually, now she, in one sense, carried out the essence. She didn't carry out the essence of the unjust law. She placed the child in the Nile. She placed him in the river, okay, but she did not put him in there to drown. She made this little ark where it was waterproof, where it would float, okay? And that was an act of faith. Now, and that was an act of faith in trusting God's promise. Now, you can read about Moses' parents in the book of Hebrews, in the chapter they call Heroes of Faith. I believe it's in Hebrews 11:23, where it talks about the faith of Moses' parents. So it wasn't not only a natural parental instinct that caused them to do this, but it was their faith in God. For they are listed in Hebrews in the heroes of faith. Moses, the faith of Moses' parents. So this was an act of faith that they displayed in hiding this special child, because this was the person, this was the child that was going to bring the promised deliverance for God's people. Because God told Abraham that, yes, your descendants will be mistreated, they will be enslaved, but I'm going to deliver them at the right time. And this is approaching the right time. Moses' birth. He was born for that reason, to deliver God's people. Okay. So it was an act of faith on the part of his parents to spare this child. Okay. And verse 4, which we read, and his sister stood afar off, to wit would be done to him. So his sister, that is Miriam, had an important role that she performed. As I said, she maintained a visual and line of sight on the child while he was floating in the river. So she could see what was going to happen to him. So that was a very important role that Miriam played. Okay. Now we go into verse, our second outline, which is unexpected rescue. Okay, starts at verse 5 of the second chapter. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maids to fetch it. Now, we said, oh, it was a coincidence that she came down by the river to watch herself. No, it was not. This was a divine orchestration, a divine intervention by God. This whole thing was orchestrated by God. It wasn't by chance that the Pharaoh's daughter came down to wash herself. No, it wasn't by chance. It was orchestrated by God. It said, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself. No, it was orchestrated by God. Yes, she did that, but it was orchestrated by God. So when she saw this ark, she told her servants to fetch it, go get it. And this is verse 6. And when she had opened it, when she looked inside, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and she said, this is one of the Hebrew children. Now, in other words, God touched her heart. When she saw the child wept, she had compassion. God touched her heart. Obviously, she knew, yeah, this is a Hebrew child. But God touched her heart. And ultimately, and as you know the story, she adopted. Now, this is the Pharaoh who had issued this unjust law that all the male child should be killed, okay? His daughter finds Moses in this basket. Okay, God touched her heart and she ended up adopting the child. So God was all the time working behind the scene. It was not just all her. It was God working behind the scene. Now, in verse 7, so as Miriam was there, we pick up again at verse 7. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, that is Moses' sister, this is Miriam, shall I go? Because she's watching from a distance. She's in the line of sight. She's watching what happened. So Pharaoh's daughter said, shall I go? This is what Miriam said. Shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? This is what Miriam is saying to the Pharaoh daughter. And the daughter responded, Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, go. Okay, yes. And the maid went and called the child's mother. Okay. Now, this is interesting, verse 9. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, that is the mother of Moses. Okay. Obviously, she didn't know this, but the mother, she said unto her, take this child away, nurse it for me, and I will give thee wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. In other words, she took her own child and nursed it until she was weaned and got paid for it. What she would have done for free. That is, yes, nurse her child for free. She got paid for it. In other words, as they said, look at God. So she was able to nurse her own child and get paid for it. Okay, let's go to 10. 10a, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So in other words, the Pharaoh adopted, the Pharaoh's daughter adopted the child, adopted Moses. So after the child was weaned, she was taken to Pharaoh's house. So, okay, Moses was raised in Egyptian royalty. Okay, the man that was issued a decree to have him killed, basically, ended up raising him in royalty. Okay, so the man that was gonna after the killing ended up protecting him. Okay, let's go to 10b. And she called his name Moses. So she named, the Pharaoh's daughter named him Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. So this is God, as he spoke his promise to Abraham. Yes, your descendants would would go to a strange country, be mistreated, that was Egypt, mistreated and eventually enslaved, but I'm going to deliver them at the right time. And Moses grew up in royalty. He understood the customs of the Pharaoh, okay? But the idea is Pharaoh had what he meant for evil. God reversed it. God reversed the whole plan, because it was God's will. It was not God's will that his chosen people be destroyed. And when the Pharaoh at the time that came up, that said, that knew not Joseph, when he arose and came up with this edict, unjust edict, that all male childs would be destroyed, would be killed, because they tried different things. They put heavy burdens on them. They still produced. The numbers were still growing. So the last straw was to order all male children killed at birth. But Moses was protected. Okay, Moses was spared because Moses was the deliverer, the promised deliverer of God's people. And that's our lesson today. As just to finish up, this lesson here is showing how God was at work in orchestrating this whole lesson. Everything was orchestrated by God, and to be able to put Moses in a position to one day deliver his people from many years of Egyptian bondage. This is our lesson for today. We like to thank you for watching. We ask you to join us next week for another edition of the Sunday School Review. Thank you.